Hey everyone, it's Steven from the Gaming Hub, and today we will be reviewing Warhammer Chaosbane. In the interest of full disclosure, I did receive a review code for this game, but before we begin, if you liked the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you can see more of our content. Now, without further ado, let's get into the review itself. First up, let's start with graphics. The game does look good. The colors are varied. They fit the locations we're in. Each overarching area, like chapter or act, as you would, has a kind of specific feel to it. So the first one's you're kind of either on the city wall or you're down in the sewers. The second area, you're more inside of a city or in the forest. The enemies are varied and do fit the location of where you're fighting them. And it doesn't feel like you're fighting the same things over and over again. The bosses look good. They're differentiated from the main enemies you'd be killing a lot, and they're differentiated from each other, and each boss has its own mechanic that makes the boss fights pretty fun. It is an isometric ARPG, but it does feel like the characters are a little too small. For instance, I was playing on my couch, sitting 5-10 feet away from the TV, and sometimes it got hard to see who was who, so I could have used maybe a closer up on the camera. But overall, the graphics do look pretty good. Next up is audio. There could have been more music when you're actually inside a level. The sounds are fine as far as like the battling goes, but the music's almost non-existent. I never listen to music when I play video games, but this game made me want to put something on because it's eerily quiet. The characters do sound good, at least voice acting wise, though the script they were given doesn't do them any favors, and they repeat the same lines over and over again at times, especially, for instance, whenever my character got weak in battle, and it happened a few times, especially if I was fighting a difficult mini-boss for the first time, he would say the same thing, just over and over again, and that got old very fast. The overall story's cliched. The leader gets put out of commission and you have to figure out a way to save him. Typical fantasy setting. It doesn't sink its hooks in, but we don't really play these, at least I don't. I don't play these games for the story. The most important thing in an ARPG is the gameplay, and so that's up next. So the gameplay could have used some more fleshing out. I played as the High Elf Mage. There's 3 other classes. You have a warrior, a rogue, and then a dwarf with dual axes, kind of like a berserker type character, right? So the mage that I played at had moves that could be controlled using the right analog stick, such as a magical orb that you can make into a flaming orb by leveling up, and there's tiers to each ability. There's also tornadoes you can control using the stick. You can control the last one you call out, right? The most recent one. However, controlling the magic was tough when you're also controlling your players, trying to cast other spells, and staying away from the enemies so you're not being murdered, right? And another issue I had was the game didn't do a good enough job convincing me to switch up the abilities I was using. I'd level up, I'd unlock some new abilities, but I never felt the need to switch after like the early game. None of the abilities really changed the way I played either. I kind of just called all my abilities until my magic was up, then used the basics while my mana was being replenished, and then I would go back to using the abilities. But none of the abilities, when I switched them out, really changed the way I went about going, and it just got a little old after a while. And none of the abilities felt really good to use either. On top of abilities, there was issues with loot. There is a lot of loot that drops, but after a few hours, I realized all the loot did was increase stats just minorly, right? You might, instead of a 10% boost, it might be a 12% boost. Good ARPG, in my opinion, has its loot mesh with the abilities. So the loot might increase specific abilities, forcing you to try to change your playstyle to use those abilities, but Warhammer never did that. It just increased the damage or decreased like cooldown reduction, and it's not as fun when that's all the loot really does. However, the game does have a bloodlust ability that is kind of fun. So you can collect potions that increase the bloodlust meter. When the meter is full, you can activate it, and it creates really powerful attacks that kills enemies very, very fast. Those enemies in turn drop shards that could be used on the god skill tree to increase your character in different ways. But while it's fun, It's fun to kite the enemies into one another so you can activate Bloodlust to farm shards by killing a bunch of enemies really fast. It doesn't really do enough to make me want to keep playing the game, but it was one fun thing that a lot of other ARPGs didn't have. Finally, this game does have online co-op. It didn't work fantastically. The mission started fine and it was fun killing enemies with another player, but then a third random player joined in one of our sessions, and I don't know if his difficulty was set higher than ours, but it definitely changed the difficulty of the session because the enemies were now basically unkillable and they hit like a Mack truck, and it just ruined it, and I immediately left and I was like, I don't want to touch this anymore. I wouldn't recommend playing this game online with random players. It's fun if you're playing with friends because the multiplayer was fun, but there's just more issues, and I had to start the whole mission over, and I wouldn't recommend doing it if you don't have to. Overall, I found myself wanting to go back to play Diablo. When the loot and the abilities in these types of games don't complement each other, it's hard for me to keep playing. It's possible to improve the game over time, but as it stands right now, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone that's not absolutely needing a brand new game of this type. And definitely not for anyone looking to get into the genre for the first time. The graphics are decent to good. The audio needs work. And like I said, the abilities and loot need to mesh better. Overall, I'd give this game 3 stars out of 5. It doesn't not work. The game works fine. It's just not extremely fun to play, and it doesn't make me want to come back. Once again, this is Steven from the Gaming Hub, thanking you guys for stopping by. If you liked what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you disagreed with me, if you agreed, or you just want to say something, because we read every single one. If you liked what you saw and you want to make sure you're notified every time we release a new video, hit that bell. Thank you guys once again for stopping by. You can go check out some of the other reviews we've had, or our E3 coverage, and the interviews. We did some great stuff there. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.